The subject of human rights really fascinates me, and for a modern case study of human rights, I like to actually look at the juxtaposition or the clash, perhaps, of two versions of universal human rights that's taking place this very day. The rights culture that I find is the most developed is the American one in terms of human rights and in terms of the culture that backs them up, i.e. Americans are notoriously prickly about their human rights, their individual rights, property rights, this kind of thing. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that it's very well developed, and to the point where outsiders kind of are sometimes taken aback by just how touchy Americans are about every single right that they've got. The example that most resembles this in the formative period of Westernism, Western concepts, to my mind at least, is the Roman one. This is actually held up by certain exponents of an ideal American polity, state, if you will, the Roman Republic, where the Republic was essentially in the hands of men of property, fiercely individualistic, fiercely attached to their property, and they rose and fell by their own merits. Now, this is true, but it kind of leaves a large part of the picture hidden, maybe not deliberately, but the ancient Romans had a social system, the patron-client system, without which their whole society would not have made any sense at all. It couldn't have existed as the Roman society. The higher up in society that you went, the more you were likely to be a patron. In fact, it was inseparable. In order to rise high, you had to be a patron of a large number of clients. The patron tended to be the commander of the army, the person who sat in the Senate. He would provide a great deal of service to the state, to society in general, and his clients were people lower down on the food chain who depended upon him, but also backed him up at election time or in court cases, or just generally any way that was necessary if they had something that they could offer their client in return, if nothing more than just following him around the streets to sort of make him look more impressive as having a large number of clients following him around. That was the client's duties. Now, this was absolutely central. The Roman civilization simply couldn't have existed without it. The patron he had great obligations to his clients. In fact, patrons and clients could not be forced to testify against each other at law. It was almost a familial relationship. The client was almost a member of the patron's extended family. Now, the Roman family was utterly hierarchical, which meant that the patron sort of had the authority of command over his clients, and the clients had the obligation of obedience. But that was a reciprocal arrangement, as I've said. The patron even would be obliged to make sure that the modern equivalent, I suppose, would be that everybody in all of his clients ate, and his children, his wives, all of his clients were looked after, even in old age, to make sure that they never spent their old age in penury. A kind of a private welfare system that the patron was supposed to supply for the client. So the idea in the Roman mind of rights and obligations was they were completely inseparable. They were inextricable. The one wouldn't have made sense without the other. The best illustration of that in the modern case is the opening scene of The Godfather, where the undertaker has come to offer his services as client to Don Corleone, the patron. In a way, the actual scene is, even though you wouldn't believe that this was taking place unless you understood the intricacies of the patron-client relationship, the person who's got the advantage in the entire exchange is actually the undertaker. He is an eminently respectable member of the Italian community. He has loudly proclaimed his disdain for the patron-client system. He wants to be 100% American. And the American system has failed him, and now he is coming, and everyone knows that he's sitting there now in front of Don Corleone, cap in hand, to offer his services as a client, a lifetime client, to Don Corleone. And Don Corleone is kind of being squeezed. He doesn't have he can't really say no, or else he is sort of letting down a utterly respectable member of the community in front of the entire community. So he has to help out the undertaker, which he does. It's kind of an interesting and different way of seeing the human rights issue, a traditional Mediterranean reading of the human rights issue, which is an interesting lesson to people who are unfamiliar with it, in that the implication is the American system of universal human rights has failed him. So he's gone to Don Corleone, who will make things right, because it's a different kind of rights culture, but it is utterly rights and obligations are completely inextricable. So this system, actually, if you ask me, kind of broke down into the universal sort of model that we have now, because well, first of all, I think that the over time, as the Roman Republic turned into more of a dictatorship, the cliental base got a lot larger, and the number of patrons got a lot smaller, and the Roman emperor became the patron of entire society, so he had to provide bread and circuses for everybody, and they would have understood this. It wasn't just a cheap welfare state the way that it's portrayed in Hollywood these days. And then, of course, that got a huge disconnect between the patrons and the clients in Roman society, where traditionally, just like you saw in The Godfather, the client has access to his patron whenever he needs access, whereas it was pretty much impossible to ever have anything to do with the Roman emperor if you were a lowly plebeian. And then, of course, into monarchical Europe, where the upper classes sort of started to get this powerful disdain for the lower class, and started to neglect them and blatantly oppress them, who then rose up and overthrew them in the French Revolution, the English Revolution, the American Revolution, and established a framework of universal human rights, i.e. there's no longer a differentiation between patron and client. As an interesting aside, this patron-client reading of human rights and social obligations is kind of, versus the universal model, is kind of in evidence today in the quote-unquote clash of civilizations between the Arab world and the Western world, or in particular the American world. The Arab world still very much operates on the patron-client system, and it actually seems to work. The leaders of the Arab societies may actually sort of see this as their right to be the leaders, but their obligations towards their people are very powerful, especially towards people who are quote-unquote respectable. They really have to look after everyone's interests, and if you see, even a lowly Saudi can actually arrange to meet with at least a representative or a member of the Saudi royal family. The king of Saudi Arabia might be an absolute monarch, far more than the Queen of England, but he dresses pretty much like an average Saudi Arabian, and his habits are not that different. This inaccessibility is more or less absent, like the great ceremonial of European monarchy has no counterpart in the Arab world. And it's not just monarchy, the presidential systems are essentially monarchic as well, where you see presidencies being passed from father to son. You visit a lot of Arab countries, and people will riot if there's not enough to eat, and inevitably the rulers buckle under this pressure, because they understand that their position ultimately rests upon their ability to provide for everybody. We will give you obedience, blind obedience if necessary, say the clients, but we expect protection from you, and if we don't get it, bye-bye obedience. So yes, rights and responsibilities, rights and obligations are very intimately related in the two. And I think that a lot of, as I say, the libertarian kind of idealization of the ancient Roman system, or the way things used to be in the good old days, forgets this. Most of these libertarian societies that they point to in the past, and they were libertarian, really, the Roman Republic was, conveniently forget the fact that you simply cannot, that these societies could not have functioned without a powerful set of social obligations. Thank you.